start off this episode, I want you to zoom out for a moment. What I mean is take a few short minutes imagining that you're on a flight in the window seat as the plane takes off in the air. You know, things below are starting to get smaller and smaller, and then you start seeing a broader picture of everything. You see, the holidays are a great time to zoom out in our lives. Now, I'm not talking about getting all sappy, but really take a fuller look at things, because so many of us have been zoomed in far too long. No doubt, you know, the daily circumstances that many of us find ourselves in seem to demand our full and immediate attention. But I want to challenge you to zoom out in your life, more specifically this past year. Are you ready? Now, if you need more time, go ahead and pause this video or keep watching, and I'll give you some time at the end to reflect. Okay, I'm going to ask you the most cliche and also dreaded question that we get asked around Thanksgiving time. Here it goes, and you can say it along with me. What are you thankful for? Does anybody else absolutely dread getting put on the spot with that question? I'm sorry, you can call me cold-hearted or ungrateful, but I get really nervous when I have to answer that question out loud. And some of you are like, why are you making such a big deal of that question, Andy? All you got to do is answer, I'm thankful for my family, and then they'll move on to the next person. But here's the thing, I'm a textbook overthinker, and I feel like I have to have something super profound or meaningful or poetic, or I can't say anything at all. I don't want to just say something, though. I want to feel it. You know, thankfulness is sort of the type of thing that you feel, right? When you say, I mean, not always the case, but for the most part, you know, but some of us right now aren't feeling much in terms of thankfulness this year. You know, there's been a lot of change and disruption that maybe has put you in a very cynical or on-edge mood. Maybe the added inconveniences or mandates have left you feeling flustered. If that's you, I especially challenge you to open up your heart and mind to God in these next few moments.
Well, it has been an unprecedented year. Crazy. With all the
stuff.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented how many times we've actually heard the word unprecedented.
Our dream vacation was canceled.
You got to keep the job you don't like.
You know they can see you?
But let me tell you all the no's, friends. No going to restaurants, no movie theaters, no movie theater popcorn, no state parks, no going to athletic events, no church services, and no...
Don't say it. Don't.
Hey, kids! You've got to be more careful with the toilet paper! This is all we have!
All the drive-by birthday parties, graduations, baby showers.
I will say this, I felt a little awkward throwing out that baby shower gift into the front yard.
You weren't supposed to do that.
It just feels like a wasted year. There, I said it.
Yeah, there's just all the time at home. Boom!
And all the time that we were made to spend together. Hey, honey! Honey!
Leave me alone! All the heart-to-hearts. Goodness.
Speaking of hearts, our son, Jason, right over there, said yes to Jesus. Right at that kitchen table.
July 17th, 2020.
You know, I guess it's not really wasted time because God didn't waste a moment of it.
I think I have the answer to what I'm thankful for.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What is it?
Everything.
Everything.
Let's take a moment to look at the question that thankful people ask. Now, before I get to that question, I've got a question for you. Did you have a perfect year? You know, did everything go as expected? How about a perfect month? Perfect week? Perfect morning? I know it's really silly to ask that question because life is full of setbacks. You know, there's big setbacks like the death of a loved one, maybe an illness or a financial surprise, could be a marriage issue. For some of you, it's the setback of having an empty chair this holiday. Maybe there's some smaller setbacks, you know, like the kids woke up early, you ran out of gas, you hit a deer, you have a headache, maybe you're having to be quarantined, or you have no motivation, bad weather. You know, the writer of Proverbs tells us, in their hearts, humans plan their course. but the Lord establishes their steps. Now, people who like to plan absolutely hate this verse, which brings us back to the question that thankful people ask. Now, we're going to actually uncover this question as we look at the letter that Paul writes to the Philippian church. Now, Paul had a close relationship to those people. He's writing to friends, and he starts off thanking God for the Philippians. He prays that they would grow in love and wisdom. Then he tells them, now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. Notice what Paul clues us in here about his circumstances, that he's in prison. He mentions chains, he mentions guards. He was stuck in Rome on lockdown, but on a permanent lockdown. You see, Paul had plans. There were churches he wanted to start, places he wanted to go, people he wanted to tell about Jesus. He was moving along the board, but landed on the go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. His plans were absolutely disrupted. Now, I'm sorry, but I was a crybaby when my gym closed for 3 months. And I'm pretty sure my response to being in prison would not be very pretty. However, look again at how Paul chose to respond. He says, what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. You see, Paul asks the question that thankful people ask. Now, what is that question? We'll get to that in a moment. But Paul asks it again as he considers the possible death that he would face, saying, I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. And he says, for to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. If I am to go on living in the body, this will mean fruitful labor for me. Yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I am torn between the two. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far, but it is more necessary for you that I remain in the body. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain, and I will continue with all of you for your progress and joy in the faith. You notice again, Paul asks this question. What's the question? We'll get to that in a moment. But he asks it again when he talks about his physical needs. He says, I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all of this through him who gives me strength. Now, in speaking of each of these things, did you catch the underlying question that Paul is asking? You know, it's the question that thankful people ask. And this is the question I want us to consider asking right now as we are zoomed out. Now, when you get to the question already, Andy, you're probably thinking, seriously? Okay, here it is. We need to start asking this question. What does this setback make possible? What does this setback make possible? For Paul, look at the setbacks, the prison. He says it served to advance the gospel. You know, the whole palace guard knows that I'm in chains for Christ. People are bolder in their faith because of my chains. And he talks about the setback of lurking death, saying that death is better because I get to be with Christ, but by living, I can be a godly example. Then he talks about the setback of being in need, saying I've learned contentment through all this. I've learned to rely on Christ's strength and not my own. For Paul, each of those setbacks are a win-win. Now let's demonstrate this for a moment. Imagine that you're training for a marathon. Now some of you are like, that's going to take a big imagination for me to be training for a marathon. Okay, so work with me for a moment, folks, okay? So you're training for this marathon. You decide you're going to get up in the middle of the night to get a drink, but you trip over a toy. Oh man, the kids left the toy out again, right? You break your foot. Now you could ask, why am I so clumsy? You know, why does this have to happen to me now? You know, what did I do to deserve this? Now, these are valid, natural questions, but ultimately they're unproductive and disempowering because you can't do anything about the past, right? What if instead you asked the question, what does this setback make possible? Now, this is a definite shift, a shift to the future, kind of asking the question, what does this setback make possible? Maybe for you, it's saying, okay, well, I get a week off of work to rest. You know, I'm finally forced to slow down. This setback allows me to do another hobby. I can finally watch the show Lost that everybody's been talking about for years. Maybe it's some of the little perks the setback makes possible of having the handicap spot, being dropped off at the front door, and maybe you learn the challenges of what it's like to be handicapped. Like, man, there's no ramps anywhere. Things aren't wide enough, and you're able to empathize with those who face that on a regular basis. Maybe for you, the setback makes possible allowing others to step up and help you, that you gain appreciation for those around you. Maybe it's just getting to meet new people, like a medical team or physical therapists, or conversation starter. I don't know what it is, but notice what Paul tells this Philippian church. He says, whatever happens, whatever happens in your life, whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Start seeing every situation as a win-win. Now you're probably thinking, okay, you got to be kidding me. But I want to give you a personal example. Now I've shared this before, so humor me if you've already heard it. This past year has disrupted the church world. Just think about it. The Sunday morning in-person worship service is kind of a staple of church life, right? The most visible thing I do as a pastor is preach a sermon to a group of people who gather in a large room every Sunday morning. People kind of joke with me, if I didn't preach that week, well, what did you do this week? Because that's kind of a big part of what I do. But what we did is we made this difficult decision that for the safety of everyone, we needed to cancel gathering in person for a few months. Now, this is a huge setback, really. You think about this for a moment, though. What did this setback make possible? I was forced to be recorded on video every week. I ended up watching myself on video and hearing my voice and noticing my quirks. Now, maybe you're comfortable watching yourself on video, but most of us definitely aren't. Watching myself, although painful as it has been, has allowed me to make several changes. I don't look down at my notes nearly as much as I did before. And I also recognize that my 30-minute sermons I was giving actually feel like 3 hours when you watch them online. So I was able to cut my sermons in half, and actually sometimes more, and get to the point sooner. And I know some of you really appreciate that fact, right? What else has this setback made possible? As a church that we've been wrestling with what it looks like to launch other churches in our corner of Iowa. Now, although we still don't know the where of that, we've been able to expand our footprint by having our teaching online. You and I can share the message easily with people. People who aren't connected with the church can now discreetly watch whenever and wherever they're at. We've been able to do a better job with video that will come in handy when it comes time to launch another location. Now, what else has this setback made possible? I've learned video editing. I know way more than I ever thought I would know about cameras and lighting and tripods. I could go on and on about the things I've learned along the way. Now, let's zoom out for a moment. Where did this all start? All these things that were made possible, where did they all start? It started with a setback. So what am I thankful for? Now, this might seem odd, and at the same time, it might not. But I'm thankful for the setback of COVID-19. Now, I'm not completely thankful for every aspect of it, mind you. But think about that. That setback has made these things possible. Now, what about you? What are you thankful for? Now, I want to land this plane here. Now, I've actually considered spending another 10 minutes telling you how to cultivate the win-win attitude that Paul has. But instead of going through that, I think you can look at it yourself. If you read Philippians chapter 4 this week, he uncovers how he's able to have this win-win attitude despite the setbacks. But instead, as we close, I want us to maybe both you and I take a moment to reflect on this past year, to zoom out and ask the question that thankful people ask. What does this setback make possible? Let's pray.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. So good. With every breath that I am able, sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. My life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so